Oh yeah, Outliers. Niiamah Ashong here, and thank you so much for letting me and letting us be a part of your journey here today. We are here for an Outliers Edge Roundtable where we have six amazing outliers who are out in the world creating something new in addition to what is already there. And they're doing it in a way that is uniquely palatable for each of them. And so I'm excited to explore how each of them are showing up in their leadership, showing up in their business, and continuing to uplift the world through the work that they do. So let's go ahead and give you a chance to meet these esteemed outliers. We're going to start off with Tali, and then we're going to go to Bella.
Okay, hey everybody, I'm Tali Lindberg, and I'm part of two podcasts. One is called Orange Hatter, and it's women teaching women Bitcoin basics and the why of Bitcoin. And the other podcast is Bitcoin homeschoolers, as in they are similar in that there's a lot of misinformation out there, and we are in the podcast explaining why it's special in both industries.
Glad to have you here. Bella, then Kendell.
Hi guys, my name is Bella and I am the host of Bella, A Journey to Self, which stands for Build, Elevate, Learn, Love, and Accountability. And it's basically just me having conversations about vulnerability and sharing all the things that I've learned in my journey of life.
Glad to have you here. Kendell, then Stephanie. And Kendall, you're still muted at this moment.
Hi, everybody. My name is Kendell Boysen, and I'm the founder of encouragementology, which is the practice of instilling hope. And that's the name of my coaching business as well. And I've been a podcaster since 2018 and just trying to bring positive alternatives to some of life's challenges.
Ooh, I love positive alternatives. We're going to be playing with that. Oh, thank you very much, Kendall. Glad that you're here. Stephanie and Shawn.
Hi, my name is Steph Schechter, and I am the founder of Remembering You, and my podcast is The Essence of You, and it's all about sharing my journey, the hero's journey, and coming back to remembering thyself, because if you are not in tune or in touch with that, you will always be looking outwardly.
Thank you so much, Stephanie. Shawn and Zook.
All right. Hey, everyone. I'm Shawn Buttner. I'm the host of the Meaningful Revolution podcast, where we help creators find the joy in what they create and focus on high performance and just feeling fully confident and present in the work that you do.
Glad to have you here. And then Zook, why don't you take us home?
Absolutely. Hey, everybody. I'm Zook, and my podcast is Strength of One, where I help dads level up their lives by creating a morning and an evening routine that encompasses health and mindset and all sorts of things. Oh, and it's also Christian-based.
Well, thank you all. Thank you all for making the time for this year and honestly for living the life that you've lived and for showing up in your leadership, because if without that, we wouldn't be here in this space. I believe I get that each of you have deep beliefs that had you all start a podcast and bring something out to life. And I actually want to start off this conversation with those beliefs, right? The question I have for each of you, and I want each of you to speak to this here. We'll go around probably in the same order. But what is a belief that you had around success, around your business, around what it meant to be successful for yourself? What's a belief that you had around it that you found to not be true for you? Maybe it's true for the 97.5% of other people, but for you, when you actually went to apply it, you found that something else was different. All right, let's start off there and we'll go. So we'll use the same order here. Let's go to Tali and then Bella.
Okay, so that's a tough question. I think even when I started my business journey, which is relatively recently, and started with my Orange Hatter podcast, I knew I had to do things differently than the rest of the industry, because my goal for creating the Orange Hatter podcast was to teach women who are a tiny little minority group in the Bitcoin space to be encouraged to check out what Bitcoin is about. There is a lot of misinformation out there that's really harmful, really, for people who just listen to even just news article headlines and social media just blurbs and just the stuff that's like flashing in front of you all the time, creating this image of what Bitcoin is. And that's so harmful because Bitcoin itself stands for freedom. It's a freedom tech for the Bitcoiners. It is a privacy issue for peer-to-peer transactions. It is a capped supply, which means there's scarcity in the value that creates the value of Bitcoin. It's not a gambling tool where it's like buying a penny stock. And so when I started Orange Hatter, I knew I had to speak to women differently because most of the Bitcoin space would go in front of an audience, immediately go into the tech part. And I know for me as a mom with 4 kids, and I was homeschooling, I didn't care about the tech talk. Like don't tell me about the ins and outs of the mathematical equation and the coding that's so secure and all that stuff. I knew I had to talk to women differently. And so when I started the podcast, I think I was the only person who was not talking tech in the Bitcoin space. I was just like, tell me about yourself. Let's relate to you on a personal level. You know, if I see something, like if you're a mom and I'm a mom, I relate to you. If you are an immigrant, I'm an immigrant, I relate to you. If you came from a professional background, I can relate. People relate on so many different levels and ways, right? And you create that relationship. And then if you then say, well, for me, the reason I'm interested in Bitcoin is because I see this benefit in my life, in my children's life, in my future, etc. Then you have a way of making that connection and drawing them closer. But if you go right in front of their face and you go, let me tell you about Bitcoin, most people are like, please don't. It's a scam. Why are you telling me about this stuff? And so even from the very, very beginning, I knew I had to approach it so differently. And it's been very, very rewarding in that way.
That's cool that you found a different path in there, and you said like, let me actually relate in order to make this relatable, and then afterwards everything else started. You can have all the rest of the conversations. Yeah, Tali, I appreciate that. Let's hear from Bella and then Kendell on this one here. So what's something that you believe that like you now like realize like, hey, it doesn't apply to me?
Well, so okay, so a lot of people seem to be successful with podcasting, as far as I've been able to see, where they're talking about all like the rewards, the results, and that's how they're able to get the audience that they're able to get because of all the good things that come with whatever the subject they're talking about. But for me, something that I felt like the world was lacking was vulnerability. And I mean that in the life isn't always butterflies and rainbows, and let's talk about actual growth. Like, let's not just talk about the end result, which is, yes, amazing. That can come up in the conversation, but let's talk about all the crap you had to go through to get there, because there are so many people that are hearing the end results and they're thinking that because the end results were so amazing that the journey's going to be like that amazing too. They're not. And it's not that people are unaware. It's just when you hear such amazing things, you can't help but think that the journey is going to match that. And the reality is, most of the time, the journey is the toughest part. It's the reason why you grow so much to get those results. So for me, I knew that I would rather come with the hard stuff, come with the truth, come with the reality of the journey. And if it means I'm crying because I'm having realizations in the process, I'm having conversations that I don't normally have with people, and it's bringing up things that I'm realizing, I wanted to be as authentic as I could be, just to show people like, yes, I've had success, I've reached a lot of my goals, but what did I have to do to get there? And I want them to know, like, we're all human. The journeys are not going to be pretty, and it's okay because of where we end up. So
yeah. Bella, I gotta say, I've never heard it put that way, but it just really like sinks in, right? And also when I think about it for myself, what did I not hear? Like, because the end results are amazing, we think that the journey is gonna match it. And Outliers, for any of you that are in that place thinking you might be doing something wrong because the journey doesn't look as glamorous as the end promise there, like there's just so much truth. There's like deep head nods in this panel right here with us. So thanks, Bella. Like, I'm going to remind myself that for the rest of the day, at least, because I've been thinking about some things. I appreciate you. Thank you so much. Let's go to Kendell, and then let's go to Stephanie. Keep sharing some of your beliefs and how they've morphed over time.
Yeah, when I got started really on this next phase of my life and this next journey, I thought my gift was resources, like tangible resources. So I actually started helping women get back to work. And I am a career coach, but I started just kind of volunteering and trying to get women. I created a professional women's closet. I had a whole group of volunteers. We did workshops and to just help women get all the assets they needed. But it was at that very first workshop when I was taking one of the ladies home who didn't have a car. She got out of the car and she turned to me. I was kind of exhausted. It was a long day. And she said, "Thank you so much for making me feel so good about myself today." And that was like a revelation for me. And I realized that it wasn't tangible resources, it was emotional resources. And that's when I uncovered encouragement as kind of the spark that lights everything. So I totally shifted everything I was doing and I created the practice of encouragementology because I think people need to know that it's that starting spark. You can have motivation if you have a goal, but if you don't have encouragement, you don't even know a goal is possible. So that is now my idea, is to really change the focus. The tangible resources come later, but the emotional resource comes first.
I can't wait to explore some of these things with all of y'all. This is fun here. Thank you so much, Kendell. We'll go to Stephanie and then Shawn here. Keep letting us know.
So what I discovered was through my healing journey, I would always look outwardly, and it would always create this internal turmoil because, all the answers lie within. All of them, like the body holds the score, being vulnerable, going there. So I'm really loving what everyone said so far because it's all in alignment, and so my whole thing is teaching people how to remember what we are doing here, why we're here, the entire experience of being on planet Earth, like that you are here, that you're here for a short time. And whether that's growth, love, and any goals that you may have, to always come back to, okay, is this rooted in my truth? Is this rooted in God? Is this rooted in myself? Or is this external forces, deviating me to what I think I want? So it's really teaching people how to check back in within self. And I created the company Remembering You I have programs and working one-on-one with people. And the whole thing it's the emotional side of being intuitive into being able to read into you. And I said, all right, I need to teach people how to do this to themselves. So that's my whole thing.
Thank you, Stephanie. I'm excited to keep hearing this here. Thank y'all for being real about what's actually happening as it goes along for you. Shawn and then Zook, and then I'll bring in another question altogether.
All right. So when I started the Meaningful Revolution, so I have I'm a certified high performance coach. I'm also a card-carrying introvert. And so running a coaching business where it's a lot of referrals, a lot of building relationships, I was struggling a lot with the networking and kind of, everyone's like, oh, you got to get to networking meetings. And it was a lot of energy to talk to two people. Maybe it would work out, maybe it wouldn't work out. And so basically, certified high performance coaching is figuring out what brings you joy in the process, right? And so I'm like, what brings me joy in the business? The one-on-one conversations. And I've turned the podcast into how I network, because it's much easier for me to connect with one person or a couple people at a time. And so this idea that you have to be an extroverted leader, right, isn't necessarily true. You can find out what works for you. And the whole idea of the Meaningful Revolution is finding what brings you passion. And if you find that, people can talk for days about that. It's always an engaging conversation. And it solves the introverted thing where it drains my energy. I usually end up like having to like pace around my apartment after a coaching meeting or interview because I'm just so amped up. So find out what makes it fun for you and just kind of follow that path, and it tends to lead you to great places.
Oh, I like this. We're gonna have to follow that's a breadcrumb that I think we might be following later on in this conversation. Thanks for putting it in here, Shawn. Appreciate you. And then Zook. Look, you're muted right now.
Oh, I knew that. I was just making sure the mute worked.
There we go. Nicely done.
There's my confidence. What's up again, everybody? With me, the way I grew up, I had a lot of inconsistency in my life, and that was in regards to a father figure. So I had to learn a lot of things growing up, and then later in life, because of that, I tried to find acceptance through other things since I didn't have a fatherly kind of acceptance, and I started getting into drinking and drugging, which eventually almost killed me. And then one day, I had my God moment where I'm like, man, I've seen through so many different religions, and then there was something about grace, and I started to look into that, and it was so amazing. Looking into it, then I wasn't a Christian, but I started following the teachings of Jesus, and I noticed my life started getting better and and became a Christian. And then that led to me just God related in my heart, like we need better dads in this world. I mean, golly, it's been going down for decades, and it's not going to get any better. I don't believe. So I want to help dads pretty much live a full life and die empty, and help them along their journey so that they can either be entrepreneurs or live in their purpose, and they can spend more time with their family and have the freedom to do just about whatever they want, and also give and do more.
Thank you, here. Thank you, y'all. I think we're gonna have to continue having this a great conversation from like just looking at things from different perspectives, right? I enjoy the fact that we're a group of people who allow ourselves to evolve, who allow ourselves to like continue to learn what works for us. And Shawn, you talked about something that I think is pretty great for the outliers in particular. Find out what works for you, and how like and you're leveraging like the podcast as a way to like get your energy in the right place for you, right? And to continue doing what I'd say is like honoring the principles that are out there, but like finding the practices that work for you. Right. And I'd like to expand on this here, like just to keep showcasing some of the things that each of you do. Well, maybe not all of you, but we'll go through like at least 3 or 4 of you. I want to see like what's something that you do in your business that like is like almost not necessarily uniquely you, but it's like it's part of like you built it because it is you, right? Or you build it because it works for you. The real question in my mind is like, what's something you do in your business that would surprise other people to find out, like the true motivation behind it? What's something you do in your business that would surprise other people to find out the true motivation behind it? Right? I think if I was going to answer that question, one of the things I bring people together because I feel so alone, and I'm like, and I love it, but I also recognize that comes into play. All right, cool. So this now we're at the place here. Like I want to just lean into anyone who's feeling called to answer the question. Does anyone have is this going on? Yes, Bella, please.
For me, one was, like I said, the lack of vulnerability that I've just been seeing. I have this thing where I'm not that I'm tired of happy endings, but when it comes to movies, because I'm also an actress. So my thing is, I'm tired of the real part of stories not being told. Everybody's glamorizing life. And I don't like that because life isn't glamour. Like it's not. There's so much realness to life, and I think it's so beautiful when people show that. Just because it's human. Like, and being human is so beautiful to me, and I just think we need more of that. Because people are, in my eyes, what I see all the time, I feel like people are literally killing themselves for perfection, and it's for lives that they're seeing on social media that aren't real, that are just not real, and that like kind of terrifies me. So like that was a big thing for me, is we're just lacking in vulnerability. Like I need to be I read this book called Mastery of Self, and I've always had this thing about me where I just feel so desperate to save the world. And I've felt this way since I was a child. Like I've always felt like that was my job, that was my purpose, is to just make the world a better place. And in the book, it checked me, because it kind of said that that's very egotistical, but it comes from a very innocent place. And it gave a suggestion, and it was saying that the only way to have an impact that you want, if this is like true to you, is to lead by example. So for me, I was like, all right, so I need to switch on how I do things. And instead of like maybe forcing people or like pressuring people to be a certain way, to be good, to do this, to do that, I needed to be that person and just like hope that the right people, when it's time for them, would see it and would be inspired to do it, could have that decision, make that decision on their own, and they'd be the one willing to do that. So yeah, the biggest thing for me was the lack of vulnerability. And like you had said, you felt alone. For the longest time, I've felt misunderstood. I feel like I have a lot of thoughts that are different, because I'm reminded by so many people that I speak to that they're like, people don't think that way though. And I'm like, but they should, because like we would be so much more happier and so much more like of a community if they felt this way and they thought this way. Like it's just so much easier to be supportive. It's so much easier to be kind. It's so much easier to be happy when and like be grateful, instead of, just being judgmental and being
Yeah.
mean and, all these things. So it's just,
I
yeah.
feel the ease as you say that too, right? It's like,
Yeah, it's just
yeah,
like,
there's some ease in that just like takes in. Bella, as you're talking, it gets me to things here. Like something in what you said, like maybe want to do this here. And so I'm gonna play this. I'm stepping out on my own ledge here. And this is it. The ledge here is I put a question into our space. Feel free, like to either if something someone says like calls to you, respond to it. Like open up your mic. Like let's we can have that kind of open dialogue. If you're like, no, I actually have a really good question, answer to the question I put out there, go and answer that. But we can make this more free flowing. I think is where I'm at. And like I don't know, like let's go with it. Stephanie, I see you.
And to say, Bella, of how you were explaining how people should have this way of thinking and being supportive, I totally am with the support. And I feel the reason they're not is because they're so conditioned. It's such a conditioned society, and it is viewed and deemed different if you have any other thought forms in terms of why we're here, what we're here. I used to look for fairies when I was younger. I'm a very gifted, magical human being. Truly, I see you're fairy-esque. And most people would think that that is a weird thing to say, but you know what? That's me. And that's what makes us all so unique and different. And that's the gifts we truly get to bring to this world, because, and without and that's, I'm in the process of writing a book, and it is a book about my life, because when I explain the hardships and the pain and the suffering, I'm like, what? You did what? How? And that's what made me who I am today, with the empathy and the compassion and just always being an intuitive being. And so I second you on, if people, we're open to seeing things in a different way. And I feel that that's a theme that a lot of you on this panel are, of doing things a little differently. So, and I feel it within you guys, at least the couple that I'm tapping into right now.
I have a thought, kind of related to everything that we're already saying. I think what I really realized too is that connections are so powerful. And I actually started this idea before COVID. So before, we were really striving for connections, or when we finally figured out, wow, we really missed that. But I look at kind of what Stephanie was saying. I look at the world thinking they're powerless, because so much is going on and so many things. And even what Bella's saying, there's so much perfection online, and people feel paralyzed to even move and do anything, because it's this all or nothing mentality. Either I can fix it or I can't do anything. And so I really want that message to get out, that if you impact one person, I mean, if you change the trajectory of one person's day, we don't ever track where that person goes, who else they speak to, what do they do online. You know, we have no idea where that goes. It's just kind of this little positive streak that goes out in the universe. And it is so powerful. So I like a lot of the people that I work with just to know how powerful they really are. And it doesn't have to be in a grand scale. The majority of everything I do is volunteer. So my business, I've always maintained an actual, you know, business type job. I do some coaching, but I do a lot of volunteer. And God just told me that that's where my heart was at. You know, money would come somewhere else. So I think that has helped me not focus on business growth when I think about my message, and more of like, who needs to hear it today? You know, where does it need to go to make the biggest impact?
I appreciate this. Let's keep things flowing here, Kendell. Like there's and Shawn, right now I'm driven to you, and then I'm going to come to Tali. Like both of you here made me want to answer this particular question. I believe that here is Outliers. We are walking our own path, and without that, and if we're really walking our path, there's no map. There are no road signs saying here it is. There's no one, you know. And so I'm curious right now about like what's something you're taking on that is scaring you, right? Something that's taking you like outside of your comfort zone, and then like walk us through a little bit about like how you do like your outlier thing to navigate it. And I get it, like it might still be messy. You might still be figuring it out. But I think that like there's so many of us that are listening that are outliers out there that are trying to. I think that's where the crux is. We're like, it would be so great if I could, but it freaks me out, you know. And so, Shawn, would you be down to get us started on that part?
Yeah, just to play off of what you just said, I think so. The coaching that I do is all about getting people aligned holistically in a direction, right? And so while you might not have the map forward, if you have your rudder pointed in the right way, the engine going at the right way, you're angling into the wind in the proper way, eventually you'll find your way forward. Maybe that's not a perfect metaphor, but that was kind of just what came up in the moment. And so, like, for me right now, I've been following what's been fun about the podcast, right? And so first it was just interviewing people about what they nerd out about, and that would be good enough. Did that for 60 episodes, started reaching out to strangers through like a podcasting service to find guests. So it's a little bit more riskier, I guess, from like an energy standpoint, because you meet someone that is completely left field or whatever. You have to have composure to try to make them look the best, because, you know, part of my belief in doing my coaching business and here is that I'm here to help in some way, and I'm still trying to get that crystal clear, you know, but this is part of the path to figure that out. And so the scary part now is I've had to put a stick in the sand and say, this is what this podcast is about, which is helping creators find that meaningful joy in the work they do. I have a list of people I have to reach out, and now I'm doing the networking thing that I was most afraid of. I was using the podcast to kind of get around, and now I have to face it. And it's funny how sometimes those things that we try to avoid then are like, well, now this is more meaningful, and I'm going to do it because this is what I want to do, and I'm called to it. But so that's kind of like the scary part, but it's also kind of exciting in a way too, you know. And I think that's a good indicator that you're on the right part of the path. And I'd be curious for you all, like, how do you know when you're, as an outlier, you are where you need to be, or if you need to make an adjustment on, hey, like, I'm trying this, and I'm doing my own thing, and maybe it's not working, and I need to make adjustment. I'm not sure if that's a good question, but I'm curious.
Let's follow curiosity. So like that's in the mix here. Does anyone have a response to that for Shawn?
I feel like for me, it's really well, I guess where that feeling is coming from, because there's like, or at least I've read, there's a difference between like Fear usually comes from just a place of unknown. Like you're not actually scared, you just don't know what's going to happen. So that's something you should lean into versus like the feeling of danger. So if it's not the feeling of danger, then you're fine. Like just lean into that. So that's something that for me, I try to pay attention to what it is that I'm feeling. I ask myself those questions like, is this just because we're nervous about the outcome and we don't know what to do, or we don't know how things are going to fall in place and stuff like that? Or are we actually avoiding like something that could potentially be dangerous? And if it's not going to potentially be dangerous, then I know it's okay. This is a step in growth. Like this is something that's going to help me grow. So I have to lean into this no matter how much it's kind of like, I don't know, like, yeah. Cause I've done that like a few times within the last like month. One, I went on my first international trip to South Korea by myself. And I've never done anything like that. And I was just like, well, I mean, we're turning 33. Let's just do it. I know it's going to be scary because we don't know what we're going to do. We know very little Korean, so we'll figure it out. And then I just released my poetry book that is a memoir, because I've written poetry since I was a kid, and I've had a lot of trauma growing up. So putting that information out there, letting people know about like problems that I've grown up with, and like it's not the happiest story. And I'm prepared. I'm going to hurt a lot of people that have caused trauma to me, and like putting their business out there, but it's my story and I want to speak my truth. So I'm a little nervous about it, but I know that the impact is going to be greater, and I'm okay with knowing that I could possibly make people feel seen and heard, and like there's a light at the end of the tunnel. Like that doesn't have to define you. So the reward is much greater than, my fear.
I love that. And also, when you run from something that you're afraid of, you can for a while, and it will eventually rear its head and be like, all right, it's time you look at it. Just like you, Shawn, with you tried to get around it, and then eventually you had to face it. And that's just life. It's like, okay, you have some free will, but your growth depends on this right here. So
I've heard it described this like if you're playing a game and you get up to a certain boss, you can go back and restart the game, or go to another level, but like you always have to come back to that boss, and it might look different, but it's always Bowser. It's just like you're like wherever you are, it's just a different version of Bowser that's out here, and until you defeat it, it keeps going. Tali, I'm curious what actually you can respond to anything. What was going on in my mind is I'm like, I feel like Tali is able to like see this conversation and is able like, especially because given your skills at relating, you're seeing something. So I'm just very curious, like, what are you picking up here in this conversation? And if you want to go back to any of the questions we've asked, we'll go into it. But I have a feeling you have some insight that you want to just like bring in here.
Well, I'm going to speak to the Bitcoin space just because it is such a unique space, and it is the wild, wild west. There is no success story or a path you can follow. Just entering the Bitcoin space as a business means you're in the wild, wild west. And in the beginning, we thought, because we fell down the Bitcoin rabbit hole and we see the big picture, and a bad money system affects every aspect of our lives, includes parenting, includes includes the food we eat, includes the pharma, includes literally every fabric of the society is impacted by how our money is run. And so when my husband and I fell into the Bitcoin rabbit hole, we immediately thought, surely if everybody knew the same thing we did, they would come on board. And our specialty at the time was to teach Bitcoin without talking about Bitcoin. And so my husband created a board game, and we thought that was it. You just play the game with people, and they're gonna just be like, yes, I understand what it is now, I am on board. And what we have discovered is there's so many layers of yeses that you have to get to before you can even tell people about Bitcoin for them to be even open to talking about it. So we kept pivoting in the Bitcoin space with our messaging, like, okay, who should we be talking to? And so the avatar kept shifting. And I always tell my kids, I have 4 kids that are grown, and I always tell them, like, whatever you decide to do, you always have the right to change your mind. You always get to pivot. And it's the same thing in business. And we have pivoted so many times. So we were like, okay, we are going to target Bitcoiners who are trying to share with their family. Okay, but if their families, they're adults, then they already have certain understandings of the world. Their identity is so tied up with money, like our society as a whole, actually world as a whole. Your identity is so tied up with money, whether it's your assets, your career, your trajectory, your family background, doesn't matter. When you challenge your belief on money, you are challenging their entire identity. So we got to back it up a little bit. And so we kept backing up from teaching people Bitcoin. So I started the podcast, and I wanted the personal stories to come out. Then we started Bitcoin homeschooling because we said, okay, well, it really comes back to education, right? How are we taught in schools to conform to things that are told to us and absorb and then kind of operate within that social system? So we're like, okay, let's go even further and further. And I just related so much with what Bella said and Kendell and Stephanie about this idea that what you're feeling is the truth, and your sense of value must be intrinsic. Nobody can give it to you. Your parents can't give it to you by giving you a sticker for something good that you do. You can't even begin to challenge your current belief about money system, and for us to even tell you that Bitcoin could be a possible solution if you don't have that sense of self-confidence already in place, so that you are able to challenge what people are telling you, challenge what society is telling you. So we kept backing up. And my newest project is a very, very simple thing. Just tell kids when they're little, like 5 years old or even younger, to start keeping track of the positive ways they're influencing the people in their immediate circle. So for example, I think Bella was the one who said it, when people think heroic acts or doing something good, it's something grandiose. It's like, we're saving the rainforest, and we're gonna save the species that's going extinct, or something like something so huge. But really, if your mom's tired and you bring her a cup of tea, in that moment, you positively changed your mom experience, right? That's heroic for a 3-year-old, 4-year-old. If your little 2-year-old sibling fell down and you helped her up, she's crying, you're like, it's going to be okay, you give her a hug, that's heroic in that tiny little moment. But we don't see it, because we see it, but we don't see it. And so if you spotlight those things, it's in human nature to feel good when you do something that makes other people feel good. Nobody has to teach it to you. Nobody has to give you a sticker and say, hey, you know what? You helped a little sister. You should feel really good about yourself right now. Nobody needs to tell you that. It's a human nature, that you just experience that. And so if you spotlight that for kids from the time they're little and they're growing up, year after year, seeing themselves as powerful individuals, powerful to influence, make positive impacts in their surrounding, eventually that's going to grow and compound, right? Then when they get to the point when they start to see society, like they're a young adult, they're entering society, and they see stuff and they see like just alarm bells going off, like about the unfairness of the monetary system and how people who are close to the money printer, they benefit in a way that the rest of us can't even imagine. They're going to be like, okay, let's do something about that. I'm going to challenge that. I'm not going to accept that as a reality in my life. Inflation is like, right now, death and taxes are the two unavoidable things in everybody's life, but it's not true. It's inflation. We're all feeling it. Our kids are going to feel that more than any of us here have experienced it, because it is printing so fast right now, right?
But there's
So
something
they
like
have to.
I feel like I'm getting from you, Tali, like that's really like flowing through. One, you said earlier, like there were so many layers that you need people to go through to understand the Bitcoin, right? And it was really cool, like hearing you go like walk it all down. And some of the things I got here was like, one, like going down to the root issue, going down to the core, like making sure you're spending the time actually going through the layers to get to it. And then there's also something, Tali, that I hear from you is like patience. There's you're like, I would start with y'all at like 2 or 3, and but know that like if the work is done now, that continues to like that will continue to blossom, that will continue to grow. And like, and when I hear that, that's looking at things. I'm looking at each of you here on the panel here, where it's like y'all have big missions in life, and it's like it's not like a thing that just like you turn on the light and it's just accomplished. You know, it's like I can feel the longevity in it here. So Tali, I wanted to say thank you for that here. And you talked about pivots earlier, and it made me think a little bit about the Zook. Because when I was hearing a bit about your story, it seems like you've also like pivoted quite a bit, and just like the way that you see the world, the way that you move through things here, right? So let's talk about like the components of you that like allow yourself to continue to make these kinds of changes, that allow yourself to. I think it really comes back to Tali said the word identity. You know, it's come up here in this conversation. Like I feel like there are things that you brought into the conversations like where you're like those were identity shifts and people knew you a certain way. There was a way that you're going through life, and then you decided to change things around. Walk us through like how you navigated this, and then if anyone else is feeling called afterwards, like let's bring this in terms of like some powerful identity shifts to really show up as you, and how that might have challenged like the world you were in before, or how people knew you before then. So you want to take that away?
Yeah, for the longest time, I started living pretty much with a victim mentality because of just the way I grew up. I had to learn to adapt, and I moved around so many times. And I started to pretty much make a whole lot of poor choices just because that was my sphere of influence. And I found out the people I started surrounding myself with make a massive impact. So now I have an amazing brotherhood, just an accountability group and things like that. And then I found certain systems to help keep me busy because I found an incredible way to slow down time, which is to really challenge yourself, which in our culture nowadays, people are so that they're just so accustomed to instant gratification and things like that. When if you have somebody coming over from, oh, where's a friend? Somebody who came over from, think it was Africa or something like that, where like they just go with the flow there. But then when they came here to the States, they're like, man, everybody's in such a hurry to go everywhere. It's just freaking crazy. Um, yeah, that's just something that I've definitely learned is just to slow down and just enjoy the process. I think it was Stephen R. Covey. It's not the destination, but the journey along the way. There's so much you can learn when being present in the moment. That won't only just help you, but it can help others.
Yeah, thanks for bringing that in. Yeah, Stephanie, I see you.
Because if they see your calm and peace, they're like, I want that. How? And that's, I hear you on other countries. I don't know if that was as a whole, because I didn't realize how much of a rat race America is. And I'm American until I got called to go over to Europe, just one way, just go. And I said, okay, fine. I've never done this before. I was gone for 5 months. And I just noticed that everything there was just, they enjoyed everything they did. Their morning coffee, they weren't in a rush, like they weren't trying to get somewhere really fast. And everyone just, I say, knew how to live. And then you come back here and it's like, woo, 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 woo. And it's easy to get caught in that run because you're just trying to keep up, but keep up with what? Yeah.
Kendell, for some reason, I'm drawn to you right now here. What would you like to add into this part of the conversation, whether it be about pivots or anything else that you heard here today?
Yeah, I think it's exactly what Shawn was saying too. It's like, how do you know when you're there, or how do you know you're doing the right thing? I don't know that we ever really know that, and I think that into what Stephanie's saying, if you can stop and listen and just give yourself a moment, a lot of that comes with time and age and perspective, but we are missing out on so much trying to get somewhere and trying to get there quicker. And, we're caught up in followers and, you've done a great job with this podcast, and your marketing is amazing, but it takes a lot of work. And so, and what Bella was saying about perfectionism, I mean, if we just sit back and think about what do you want to say, and what do you want to do? And is it that important to do it in that way? And can you make a big difference without going that extra degree? I mean, just because you can do it doesn't mean you need to do it. And so, a lot of us have that, oh, well, I can do this and I can. So we take on more and more and more because we can. And when you're an entrepreneur, you can wear so many hats that you really don't need to. And then when you sit back and go, okay, what's bringing me joy? Going back to what someone said, what Shawn said about joy, is it all bringing me joy? And if not, what's the point? You know, what's the point at the end of the day?
I had to breathe in on that one there, Kendall. One, you gave me an insight that I just took in. I was like, oh, I can totally answer this problem that I've been facing from a different perspective. I'm like, how do I didn't realize until you said here, which is so thank you. I'll explain on that a little bit later, but thank you. I want to breathe this in. I want to breathe this in here and just like explore and see what we've been bringing out here to the table. There was one more question that I wanted to bring into to each of you, but I think I want to actually give us a little bit more space to close out rather than rushing that in. Okay. And like this is me going against my nature. I'm like, let's just get as much as we can in here, you know. But I want to thank you all for just like helping to slow down. This is an ongoing journey. We're continuing to experiment, we're continuing to go through. And how do you know if you get there? Let me know when you get there, by the way. I'd like to know what that's like. So let's do this. Let's go ahead and start closing down this space. And the way that I like to do this here is I want to make sure that Outliers have a chance to continue the journey with you, right? And so I'm going to ask each of you to share an insight that you got from today's conversation, something that was meaningful for you that you're walking away from this conversation with. And if you're not taking anything away from this conversation, that's a-okay. Just say that too. My insight was I had no insight. But I want to bring that into our space. And then if you can also let Outliers know how they can continue or deepen even the journey with you, that'd be absolutely wonderful. All right. Why don't we go ahead and do this here? Why don't we start over with Stephanie and then we'll go over to Kendall.
What I took away from this is it doesn't matter where you are, how far along on your journey you are. It is okay and normal to not know what you're doing, because we don't really, at the end of the day, know. You know, it's just a matter of, does this feel good? Is this making me happy? And you get to change it whenever you want. So nothing's final. And a way that people can get in touch with me is on Instagram. I don't know if you drop the handles.
We'll have the handles there, but like I've always been someone that listened to things and then I immediately took action from the listen. And so just for anyone that's just an audio person or auditory person, let's make sure we say it.
The Essence of You podcast and rememberingyou.co. You can find all my links on there. Steph Schechter _ is my Instagram. Fun one to type out. So rememberingyou.co will be where you can find most things.
Well, I appreciate you. Thank you so much, Stephanie.
Thank you.
Let's go to Kendall and then Tali.
Yeah, what I'm taking away is just that there are other people that are passionate and are trying to figure this out, because I think as outliers and entrepreneurs, we get so rooted in our own thinking and our own business that we're trying to get our message out there, that we don't really take the time to absorb other messages and to see that it's a community, and it's a community of people that care. And that just gives such a warm feeling and a lot of encouragement to me. You can get in touch with me at encouragementology.com, and I'm Encouragementology on everything, anywhere you get your podcast, and any social media. You can just look for Encouragementology.
Thank you for being here, Kendall. Thank you so much for that. We'll go to Tali and then Shawn.
I think my biggest takeaway is always check with your gut and heart first, and then you can collect data. And the more data you collect, if it means you have to pivot, then you pivot. And if not, that's okay too. And like you said, Niiamah, there's not a place where we come to a finish line. It's always going to be questions of whether or not we're doing the right thing at any one moment. So that's what I'm taking away. It's really wonderful to be with other entrepreneurs and know that I'm not doing it wrong. That's a question I ask myself all the time. Am I doing it wrong? Is that why this is not happening? You can reach me on orangehatter.com. Hatter is like the Mad Hatter in Alice in Wonderland, orangehatter.com. All my contacts are on there and all my projects are on there. So yeah, reach out.
Thank you, Tali. I think you just like spoke for a lot of us in that last minute. Like, am I doing it wrong? Like, thank you for putting that into the space. So we got Shawn. Let's go to Zook, and then we'll go to Bella.
What I'm taking away is in a digital room like this, I'm always amazed at how rooted in service everyone is and how we all have our own unique perspective that we're able to share and make an impact out in the world. And I want to acknowledge that and thank each of you for sharing first off. And to also say, I was talking about follow your joy, but like what Bella was saying, it's not always easy. And I want to also make it clear that like following your joy is not often the easy path forward. And I think each of us has probably experienced that at some point in our journeys, and that choosing that maybe is the hardest choice, to give up a job, to go full in on this or whatnot. So again, just appreciate sharing y'all for that, and really just being reminded of your service, and the great conversation we had is great. If you want to follow up with me, you can go to meaningfulrevolution.com to follow the podcast. I have all my socials on there. You can sign up for my newsletter, get a weekly email with the podcast and topics on high performance and being a creator. So hope to see you guys there.
Thank you for being here. And I'm excited to see you over there as well. We'll go to Zook and then Bella.
Oh no, sorry, I just had a brain fart. I forgot what the.
Look, I really appreciate you, by the way. Like when you said I'm testing the mics, I was like, I got to use that someday. Yeah, just share an insight if you got any from the conversation and how people can go deeper into the journey with you.
Oh yeah, like man, I really don't believe there's anything else I can add that and others haven't said, and I've heard it said that if you're the smartest person in the room, then you're in the wrong room. So I like that I'm here around you guys. It's been amazing, just what I've gathered. And if you guys want to reach out to me, you can go to my Facebook, Zook Montague, or excuse me, or my podcast, Strength of One podcast, and right now it's just on Spotify.
Thank you so much, Zook. And then Bella, can you bring us home? You are muted.
Okay, hold on.
There we are. Yes.
So for insight that I got a lot of confirmation actually, on my journey, just like how, Tali was talking about how she has the questions like, I wonder if I'm doing it right or if I'm doing it wrong. For me, like being able to have this conversation with such amazing and like wonderful people who have their very own unique missions and, strive to do great things, especially like impact others. The impact or the insight that I got was life is truly what you make it. Just stay authentic to yourself, and honestly, life will be beautiful no matter what. Like, yes, we talked about how the journey there is kind of rough, but in the end, it will be worth it. So please just stay authentic to yourself. Each one of you guys are staying authentic to yourselves. And like the stories that I've been hearing during this conversation is just like, okay, these are my people. I don't feel as alone as I've felt.
You are definitely not alone, Bella.
Yeah.
You are definitely not alone.
So confirmation there. So thank you guys for all of that for me, and sharing your stories, and then everybody can find me on Instagram and TikTok. I don't know if anybody does TikTok, but Bella Crimson with 2 N's at the end. You can find me there. I'm doing a lot of rebranding right now. So I am doing a lot of sharing my journey and sharing my thoughts and stuff, just little snippets, but being, authentic as best as I can.
Well, I am deeply appreciative of you. Thank you all so much for living the life that you've lived. Thank you for coming here and sharing your expertise, your experience, and overall your leadership. And I guess really, thank you for sharing you. Thank you for giving us a glimpse into who you show up as. And I cannot wait for Outliers to continue diving deeper into each of your worlds because we have so much to gain as we continue to grow. I appreciate you. And until the next time we talk, remember to be you on purpose. Journey on.